Tonight, I'm delighted to have Dr. Carmen Boulter return for an exciting two-part show. Dr. Boulter is a professor at the University of Calgary in Canada who has just completed her 25th trip to Egypt. Since 1995, Carmen has been leading sacred site journeys to Egypt, the Mediterranean, Peru, and Tibet. She has traveled to 51 countries exploring ancient mysteries. Her new 2-DVD set, The Pyramid Code, is a magnificent revelation and in-depth exploration of the little-known secrets of Egypt in 5 complete programs. A documentary channel named The Pyramid Code the top documentary of 2010. And I recommend it very highly because I think it's the best one around. She is also the author of Angels and Archetypes, a multidimensional map of spirituality and feminine goddess mythology and their contemporary relevance and return. And both can be found on her site at www.pyramidcode.com. And there will also be, for those who are interested, there are some incredible, mind-blowing pictures that are available. If you go to the site pyramidcode.com and just put in your name and email address, they will be sent to you, and you can take a look at these as Carmen is describing what she saw and what she felt. And believe me, you got to see this. So, with that build-up, let's get the ball rolling and welcome Carmen back to the show now. Hi, Carmen.
Hi, Lance.
How are you?
I'm just great, thanks. How are you?
Oh, I'm fine. You just recently returned from Egypt, yes?
Yes, a couple of weeks ago.
What was one of the most startling changes that you noticed in this last visit?
Actually, there's a lot of differences in Egypt, and I had been there in March, and I was really surprised to see just how the people actually seem to be really overloaded, and it's really getting stressful out there, to tell you the truth. But we managed to do the trip, and there was some incredible photos that I was able to take, as you were mentioning there. After the group left, I was at the Sphinx Guest House, and I saw this apparition in my eye. I could see it with my real eyes. And then I got my new 18-megapixel camera out to see if it would pick up what I was seeing, but not as clearly. And then I got these photos that look like the Holy Grail of the Sacred Feminine. There's no other way to describe it. I think they're up there with the Norway Spiral. They are just incredible. And if you look at the pictures, they can't be a lens flare because you can see that the camera doesn't move. So you can still see the pyramids are in the same place. So it's like this apparition came and it started forming a disc, and so you can see the base. There's like a circular globe, and then the stem, and another globe, and then a goblet with an aura around it. And you're looking at these pictures now. You've just seen them. So it's like, what do we have here? Now, the only explanation I have for it is that we've moved into the 7th day of the galactic underworld, which is the last step before the final stage of the Mayan calendar. And the idea is that the sacred masculine and the sacred feminine have to be in balance. And if it's only about patriarchal ways of being and thinking, it will no longer be supported. And because a lot of my work has been about seeing the matriarchal aspects of Egypt and how the sacred feminine was honored, but also the insistence on a balance, to me, it feels like the Holy Grail and the real prize, that we're actually arriving to a point where the cosmos, the universe, is supporting this new way of being and thinking and returning us to balance. So I think it's pretty exciting.
Well, no kidding. Anybody who gets these pictures is going to be absolutely blown away because, as you said, it does form a chalice, a beautiful, I mean, I can't even describe it. It's so amazing, and it morphs a little bit, but it's clear. It's clear what it is. And Then there's the other photographs have some interesting stuff in them too. They look almost like I don't want to say they're like green, almost saucer-like formations.
Yes, it's pretty hard not to think of them that way, especially when you see them. They look like they're flying.
Yeah,
but you can also see them forming. Now, the thing that was particularly interesting with this group, I had 36 people with me, and we were picking up orbs, and I think most people are familiar with orbs now.
Oh, yeah.
But the thing is that just like crop circles are becoming more complex over time, so are orbs. And so you can see the cellular matrix inside. Some of them have little rainbows that are attached to the various cells within them, but they used to just be round on the outside. Then they started having geometric shapes on the outside, and then auras around those. But these are not orbs.
Oh, no.
They are something else. And there's one photo there with two that are kind of flying. It looks like they're flying past each other. But it's almost like you can see the angles. It's just quite the phenomena. And to think this was all going on during the Sound and Light Show on the Giza Plateau. And it's a phenomena that now our cameras are seemingly able to capture. But I'm telling you, the feeling was, comparable. It's like when I look at the pictures, I'm like, exactly. There was something quite magnificent going on, and the energetics are showing up in the photographs. So we've got some very, very interesting shots from the group, and there was others that were also like apparitions that had shapes. So they weren't orbs either. So some kind of light being. I'm going to analyze these pictures and continue with it, but it's I guess we've got to take it at face value as well. Now, you asked about what was most remarkable in Egypt, aside from the stress that the people are enduring there.
Right.
The ceiling of the Temple of Dendera has been cleaned, and prior we were able to see very dark taupe and almost chocolate brown, and through that you could see that there were images behind it, but these ceilings are 30 to 40 feet high. And so now that they've cleaned them, they're not allowed to add paint. They are allowed to remove fungus and soot and that sort of thing. And so when I was there in March, the whole right side of the first type of style hall of the Temple of Hathor had the ceiling cleaned. But this time, the left side was cleaned. And so what this is a star map. It is a very large story. You see reptilian beings. You see star configurations. And so it's never been seen before because they're just in the process of cleaning it. And the scaffolding was still there on the left side. And the watchman invited me in, and I just went bam, 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 and took pictures. And so I can blow up pictures because of the high resolution of my camera.
Yeah.
And then look at these details. And so this is a tremendous gift because you're not going to find a lot of people who are analyzing this because very few people have even seen it.
Right.
And so what you see is reptilian beings walking up in steps. There are snakes that are crisscrossed. There's a four-headed ram with wings. And then you've got all the star configurations. And so I've been working with how the pyramid fields are actually a sky-ground correlation and a reflection. So Robert Bauval established that the three pyramids, Giza, the Great Pyramid, Second Pyramid, and Third Pyramid, were the belt of Orion. And so the rest of the pyramid fields actually line up. And so I've just gone into the Starry Night Pro, and I've been working with the super galactic grid and looking for configurations that stay together through large expanses of time. So when you look at our zodiac with the constellations, Sagittarius, Aries, all of those that we're familiar with, that follows the path, the apparent path of the sun, which is called the ecliptic. But that's relative to our solar system. So then we've got the galactic grid, and what I'm working with is a super galactic grid, which seems to have a pattern that follows the pyramid fields in the 6 distinct sites that I'm talking about as the band of peace in the pyramid code. So it goes Sirius, and that's represented by Isis, and then Orion. So it's almost like going up the chakras, which you see in Nui, And you always see in the star map in the ceiling of the Temple of Dendera that Isis is standing behind Osiris, and he's got his sword pointed, and then there's 7 stars, and that's the Pleiades. But then what comes after that? And then Colin Wilson's been talking about Cygnus and the importance, and rivaling the idea of Orion being on the Giza Plateau. So I put it into this configuration, and Cygnus is the swan, but it's flying directly along the meridian of the supergalactic grid, and it's a bird. And so if you think of the great cosmic mother, the goddess, that would be the crown chakra. And then what have we been staring at forever in Egypt? Isis wearing a bird on her head. And then the next point is the center of the Milky Way. And I'm like, how can they have known? How could they possibly have known? So we have these sophisticated programs now that we can trace it, but it's been really hard for us to even get the question that we would even look. So what I'm ascertaining this to be, because the configuration holds together throughout time, I've run it like 99,000 BC and forward. So you can just let it run. And if it's just regular stars, they kind of break apart and they fly around all over the place. But this configuration stays together throughout time. So what are we looking at here? And so this is cosmic of great proportions. And so when we have been looking at Egyptian symbolism, we couldn't understand for years that they understood quantum physics, they understood the biology, and they had 2 basic concerns about how do we get here to the planet and what happens when we leave. And in terms of incarnations, like how, what is the physical biology that allows us to incarnate on the planet? But they had no word for death. And so they would cycle, they would west, they'd say what they were westing. And they understood that the soul doesn't really die. So it's just like, it's quite exciting, to say the very least.
Well, absolutely. Now, how might that tie into the various cycles of the Mayan calendar?
Well, okay. First of all, 3113 BC to 2012 AD is one cycle of the long count calendar of the Mayan calendar. Well, the first dynasty was 3113 BC. So it's like one phase, but the whole thing goes back even farther. And so the Baktun cycle takes us through, and the Mayan calendar and the Vedic calendar also looks back to the precession of the equinoxes. It's 26,000 years. But the Egyptians were completely aware of this. Because they coded this right into the artifacts and the star maps. And so it totally relates to the Mayan calendar.
Well, and according to your research, didn't they conceivably have the technology to literally use technology that was like Star Trek's beam? What do they call that machine where you beam to another location?
Scotty.
Beam me up, Scotty.
Teleportation.
I've said that a lot lately.
Teleportation.
That's it. That's it.
Okay, so what I've ascertained here is that the Egyptians were masters of the transmutation of the atom, and they were able to use high-level technology to make free, non-polluting, renewable energy. It had to do with blowing the hydrogen and the oxygen molecules apart from the water from a water molecule. But our bodies are 70% water.
Uh-huh.
And so the high-level initiates were able to transmute the atom within themselves. And so this led to their ability to be psychic, for manifestation, for alchemy, for bilocation, and teleportation.
Wow.
And it's all the same function. So once they were able to harness this, all the other abilities came to them. And so, my research is on the ground, but a lot of my hypotheses have come from past life memory. And so then going and checking things and verifying them in the field. And so understanding how everything works together and how they work with huge quartz crystals. Like expanses of floor hundreds of feet across, and these enormous 6-foot laser-cut altars of crystal. And they're quite numerous in Egypt. And so we have evidence of the high-level technology.
Now, some people have claimed that the crystals were able to create a kind of a multiple level cloud or atmospheric barrier that kind of kept the Earth in a tropical zone or in a neutral zone. And I don't know if that was during the time of the pyramids or if that was long before or what, but supposedly it was crystal technology.
Well, there's plenty of that around, and if you think now, practically everything we use has got a teeny tiny little crystal in it. Our watches, a DVD, Ethernet cables, they're all based on crystals. Radios, all of that, and these were enormous crystals. But the thing that we have to understand is that our focus in history has been 6,000 years or so, not going way back, like 50,000 years.
Right.
Even though people like Michael Cremo support and find much evidence of the extreme antiquity of man, our school system and everything doesn't support the idea that we could have come and had higher knowledge in another age. And
yes,
so
or had even many ages.
Many. And we're told that we're the smartest we've ever been and we've got the highest technology.
Oh, please.
Yes, exactly. That keeps us locked into a way of being and thinking. So all of what you were talking about with the force fields and the crystals and all of that, most assuredly would have existed during a golden age, which would have been at least 13,000 years ago. But with the precession of the equinoxes, we add 26,000 years to each, and there was a period of time for these golden ages as well.
Right.
And then we started tumbling down denser and denser and denser and denser, and now we're at the bottom of the Kali Yuga cycle, which is the Iron Age, the age of plastic as well, and we're actually in the densest time of all of this cycle.
Yeah.
And that's why we've got blood from death instead of blood from life, and there's just a lot of distortion, and we need to expand our way of thinking in order to be able to comprehend how all this fits together. And so that's what the Pyramid Code is helping us do by looking at a new chronology and the evidence that's right on the ground.
Wow. Well, I've heard of non-polluting energy for cars. I've heard of various developments where they're splitting the hydrogen and so on and so forth. But every time I hear something, it seems as if either the patent gets bought up or the person mysteriously dies or they get a great deal of money and they disappear. So it's conceivable that this technology has existed for hundreds of thousands of years and is known to inner circles, the elite, if you want to call them. And it's fairly common knowledge, I think, at this point among insiders that those people have technology that's at least 10,000 years ahead of what we have presently. So, and then that goes back to Tesla and J.P. Morgan being unwilling to fund Tesla because they can't make any money on it. So, we're at a point where we really have to make a decision about how we're going to live, if we're going to be free or if we're going to continue to be enslaved by the ruling classes.
Yep, couldn't have said it better. And you're tying a lot together there, and it's true. The people who are running the oil cartels and all of that need us to be dependent on oil.
Right.
So think about shipping and how much things cost, like to send a container to Africa costs like $30,000-$40,000.
Yeah.
It's like, and that's all the oil that's costing the amount, and everything's going up. We've got hyperinflation, and it's easy to say we should decide and not let them, but they actually have had the power and the control, and with all the money they've been making through the Federal Reserve and everything else, and making, collecting interest on money that doesn't even exist.
Right.
They've pretty much bought up all the media, and they do have the power because they've used the control to get it. Now, how we shake that loose, and they want to charge people for, they want to forbid you growing your own food, and charge people for going off the grid, and they really have everything sewn up. And we've got to take our hats off to the brilliance of this. But you're right. If we don't change it, what's the hope for the rest of time?
Exactly, and the big problem that I see on the horizon is the lack of awareness due to the very fact that there is a circle that keeps reinforcing itself, and that is the circle of education and the circle of media that is allowed to exist which reinforces the same things, that we're physical bodies, that, have lots of sex, and if that doesn't grab you, they've got the church to, rule over you and be an intermediary to whatever God they're, du jour.